That evening, I called my mother, my voice cracking, eyes swollen from crying, trying to say the words. Mom. Mark is gone. He had a heart attack this morning. Her response? Sweetie, we're celebrating Sarah's birthday right now. Can this wait until tomorrow? I froze, the phone slipping from my hand, while my 8-year-old daughter and I held each other on the living room floor, our world collapsing. My family, my own parents, were eating birthday cake and toasting with wine. My name is Anna Weston, I'm 32 years old, and just 3 weeks ago, my life shattered without warning. My husband, Mark, died of a sudden heart attack on an ordinary Tuesday morning. We had breakfast together. He made dinosaur-shaped pancakes for our daughter, just like he always did. He kissed us goodbye and said what would become the last words I'd ever hear from him. Don't forget to pick up the real maple syrup. Not that corn syrup stuff. It was such a normal, even silly thing to say. And yet it was our final goodbye. In the chaos that followed, I reached out to my parents, desperately needing comfort. Instead, I got coldness. And a question that still stings. Was Mark's life insurance updated? You should call the company first thing. Not how are you holding up? Not we're coming right over. Just insurance. If you've ever lost someone suddenly, if you've ever felt completely abandoned by the people who were supposed to stand by you, then maybe my story, and my daughter's, will feel familiar. If this resonates with you, please share where you're watching from in the comments. This is our story, and it may be yours too. I met Mark Weston during my sophomore year at the University of Michigan. I was barely surviving my microeconomics class, while he was the charming graduate TA, who always stayed after lecture to answer extra questions. He had this calm, patient way of explaining things, like the world made sense if he just slowed it down for you. And he always smiled with his eyes first. That was the first thing I fell in love with. I didn't know it then, but I was talking to the man who would one day become my home. Our first real date wasn't anything fancy. We got greasy burgers from a diner near campus, then walked around in the cold, sharing fries and laughing until I forgot I was freezing. He asked if he could hold my hand and I said yes, thinking it would just be for that night. But his hand never really let go. We dated through college. He proposed on graduation day, hiding the ring inside my diploma folder. I remember thinking it was the cheesiest and most perfect thing he could have done. We got married at 23. A lot of people told us to wait, to live a little first. But we didn't want to live without each other. Mark wasn't just someone I loved. He was the life I wanted. He went on to get his MBA, and I started working as an office manager at a small architectural firm. When Mark landed a position at a well-known financial advisory company in Chicago, he was over the moon. Not because of the salary or the title, but because he loved helping people make sense of something that scared them. Money. And Mark had a gift for making complicated things feel simple. He wasn't just smart. He was kind. Clients trusted him because he listened. Really listened. That's what made him exceptional. We spent 5 years building our life, just the two of us. Traveling when we could, dancing in the kitchen, binging terrible reality shows on Sunday nights. We were happy. Then came the decision to try for a baby. We thought it would be simple. People get pregnant every day, right? But life had other plans. 3 years of heartbreak followed. 2 miscarriages. Endless fertility appointments. 1 failed IVF round that left me feeling like a stranger in my own body. There were days I cried in the shower just to hide it from Mark. But he always knew. He'd sit with me on the bathroom floor, holding me like his touch alone could put me back together. We started talking about adoption. Quietly, cautiously, when against all odds, I got pregnant again. Emily was born after a difficult pregnancy that had me on bed rest for the last 2 months. Mark started working from home to take care of me. He would bring me toast and tea in bed every morning, rub my swollen feet, and read baby books aloud with the kind of goofy voices that made me laugh through the discomfort. When Emily finally arrived, pink and screaming and perfect, Mark cried harder than I did. He held her like she was made of stardust. For the next 8 years, We were the family I'd always dreamed of having. Mark coached Emily's soccer team, even though he knew nothing about soccer. He learned by watching YouTube tutorials after she went to bed. He color-coded his calendar to never miss a doctor's appointment or school play. He was the kind of father every child should have, and the kind of husband you only hear about in stories. There were signs in hindsight. He complained of chest pains now and then but brushed it off as stress. He got winded more easily, but joked that he was just getting old. The doctor told him his blood pressure was a little high. Standard stuff, nothing alarming. Take some aspirin. Eat less salt. Exercise more. We nodded. We smiled. We ignored it. Because when life is good, it's easy to believe nothing bad can happen. But it did. And when the worst happened, everything fell apart in a single morning. Tuesday, October 17th. I remember the exact date because it was the last normal day I ever had. We woke up a little later than usual. Emily had convinced us the night before to let her skip morning reading time and sleep in. Mark teased her about being a little negotiator in the making. He made dinosaur-shaped pancakes as always, and added extra blueberries because she had a math test and needed brain fuel. He called it her Jurassic breakfast of champions. I was standing at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee and packing Emily's lunch, when he leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. Don't forget the real maple syrup, okay? None of that corn syrup garbage. I laughed and rolled my eyes. You are such a syrup snob. Guilty, he grinned. Love you. Love you too. That was it. That was the last thing we ever said to each other. At 10:47 a.m., my phone rang. It was Amanda, Mark's assistant at the firm. Her voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand her. Anna, it's Mark. He collapsed. In the middle of a client meeting. The paramedics are here. They're taking him to Northwestern Memorial. I dropped my coffee. The mug shattered on the tile, but I didn't even flinch. My hands were shaking as I called Ellen, our neighbor, and begged her to pick up Emily from school. Then I grabbed my keys and ran out the door. I don't remember the drive. I remember red lights blurring past. Horns honking. I remember screaming inside the car. Screaming to God, to the universe, to anything that might be listening. Please don't take him. Please don't take him. Please don't take him. When I got to the hospital, a nurse met me at the ER entrance. She didn't have to say anything. It was written all over her face. Mark had been pronounced dead at 11:23 a.m. Massive heart attack. Nothing they could do. They let me see him. He was lying there, eyes closed, face calm. It looked like he was asleep, like I could just shake him awake. But his chest wasn't rising. There was no warmth in his skin anymore. I touched his cheek and whispered, "This can't be real. Please, Mark. Please come back." But there was only silence. The hours that followed were a blur of paperwork and surreal conversations. Cremation or burial? Did he have a favorite suit? Would you like to speak at the service? I didn't know how to answer any of it. I couldn't even remember how to breathe. I kept thinking. I just saw him this morning. He made pancakes. He kissed me goodbye. This can't be real. But the hardest part, the part that still haunts me, was telling Emily. I picked her up from Ellen's house. She was coloring at the kitchen table, humming to herself. When she saw me, she smiled and asked, "Where's Daddy? He promised to come to my art show tonight." I couldn't answer. I pulled the car over just a few blocks from our house because my hands were shaking too hard to drive. I turned in my seat and took her tiny hands in mine. "Sweetheart, something really sad happened today." "What do you mean?" "Daddy got very sick at work. His heart stopped working." She stared at me, confused. "Can the doctors fix it?" God, I wanted to say yes. I wanted to lie. "No, baby. They tried, but Daddy died today." She blinked. Then her face crumpled, and a sound came out of her that I will never forget. A wail so raw and broken it didn't sound human. "No. No. I want Daddy. I want Daddy back." She threw herself into my arms, sobbing and shaking. And all I could do was hold her. hold her and cry with her. That night I couldn't sleep. Emily was in our bed, hugging one of Mark's unwashed t-shirts to her chest. She kept waking up, calling for him in her dreams. I sat on the bathroom floor, door shut so she wouldn't hear, and broke apart completely. Grief isn't just emotional. It's physical. It's a weight on your chest, a scream caught in your throat, a fog that won't lift. At 2 a.m. I called my mom. Surely now, surely at this hour, in this moment of raw devastation, she would comfort me. It rang 5 times before she answered. Rachel? What is it? It's late. Mom, I sobbed. Mark's gone. He had a heart attack. He died this morning. There was a pause. Then muffled voices and laughter in the background. Oh my God. That's awful. Are you sure? Maybe it's a mistake. I saw his body, Mom. He's gone. Another pause. Well, sweetie, this is just a lot to process right now. We're in the middle of Sarah's birthday dinner. Can you manage tonight, and we'll stop by tomorrow when things calm down? That was the moment I realized I was truly alone. Not because I didn't have friends. Not because people didn't care. But because the people who should have been there first, my own parents, chose to finish dessert instead of comforting their grieving daughter. The morning of Mark's funeral was beautiful. Too beautiful. Sunlight spilled across the driveway like nothing had changed. Like the world hadn't just lost one of the best men I've ever known. Emily wore a soft blue dress, Mark's favorite color on her. She insisted on it. Said Daddy always said she looked like a princess in blue. I braided her hair just the way he used to for school recitals. My hands trembled the entire time. We arrived an hour early to the funeral home. I wanted time to greet people, to prepare myself for the wave of grief that was coming. Mark's colleagues were the first to arrive. Men in dark suits, women with red-rimmed eyes. Some hugged me. Some couldn't even speak. One of his clients, a retired nurse, pulled me aside and whispered, Mark helped me save my retirement. He cared more about people than percentages. I trusted him like a son. I nodded, unable to speak, tears burning behind my eyes. My parents were supposed to be early. They texted 20 minutes before the service started. Running late. Traffic is crazy. They finally walked in just as people were being seated. My mother offered a quick, overly perfumed hug. Sorry, sweetie. Sarah had trouble finding something appropriate to wear on such short notice. Short notice. He died 4 days ago. My father shook hands with one of Mark's clients like he was networking. My sister Sarah didn't even look up from her phone. During the service, I spoke. I didn't think I could, but when I looked out and saw Emily, so small, so brave, sitting in the front row, I knew I had to. Mark was the kind of man who made the ordinary feel sacred. He didn't just love his family, he showed it every day. In pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. In soccer practices he didn't understand but showed up for anyway. He hated cilantro, loved crossword puzzles, and insisted on real maple syrup, no exceptions. He was my person. And he was everything to our daughter. People wept. Mark's brother Marcus, who had flown in from Japan, held Emily's hand the whole time. Her blue eyes, so much like Mark's, filled with tears but never left my face. After the service, people gathered at our house. Friends, neighbors, even co-workers I didn't know well, offering casseroles, flowers, stories, and quiet hugs. Kevin's parents, Robert and Diana, were incredible. They took over gently. Diana kept Emily close, helping her eat something, shielding her from overwhelming questions. My parents? They mingled like it was a cocktail party. I overheard my father talking to my Uncle James near the drinks table. Mark was doing really well at that firm. Partner track, I think. Life insurance must be substantial. Rachel will be set for life. That's when I felt something break inside me. He said it as if I'd hit the jackpot. As if Mark's death had somehow been a financial windfall. They didn't stay to help clean up. They left with quick hugs and vague promises of calling in a few days. In contrast, Mark's family stayed long after the last guest had gone. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and washed dishes. Diana sat with Emily and helped her draw pictures of memories with her dad. That night, after Emily fell asleep, curled up with Mark's old hoodie, I sat in the living room with a single glass of wine and stared at nothing. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Let us know when you're ready to talk about practical things. You'll need help managing everything. I didn't respond. 3 days later, they showed up at my house. Unannounced. I opened the door confused. We were in the neighborhood, my mother said, brushing past me into the house. Is Emily at school? Good, we can talk freely. That should have been my first warning. They sat on the couch like they owned the place, commenting on the decor, on Mark's sound system he had just installed a few weeks before. Then my father cleared his throat. Anna, we wanted to talk to you about your situation. What situation? I asked, already knowing. Financial, my mother answered. With Mark gone, and you being the beneficiary. You're asking me for money? I said flatly. Not asking, my father said. Just discussing what's fair. We're getting older. Retirement isn't cheap. We helped you with college. Down payment on your first home. We think 50% of the insurance payout makes sense. 50%? I repeated, stunned. And perhaps 15% for Sarah, my mother added quickly. She's struggling. You know how hard the art world is right now. It took everything in me not to scream. Mark wasn't even cold in the ground. They hadn't held me when I sobbed. They hadn't helped me make funeral arrangements. They hadn't asked how Emily was doing. And now they were sitting on my couch, treating my husband's death like a trust fund opportunity. Get out, I said quietly at first. Anna, be reasonable, my mother began. Get out of my house. I was shaking, not from fear, but from rage. Mark wasn't a jackpot. He was my husband, Emily's father, the love of my life. And you think you're entitled to his life insurance? After the way you abandoned us. They left in a flurry of indignation, calling me ungrateful, dramatic. I stood at the door, watching their car disappear down the street, and I realized something. They weren't grieving. They were calculating. And I wasn't going to let them take anything from Emily, or me ever again. The house felt different after they left. Colder. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it, as if I were physically keeping them out of our lives. Maybe in some way, I was. Emily came home from school that afternoon with a crayon drawing in her backpack of our family, Mark, me, her, and the dog we always talked about getting but never did. I drew it during art, she said quietly, laying it on the kitchen table. I didn't want Daddy to feel forgotten. I didn't say anything. I just pulled her into a hug and let my tears fall silently onto her shoulder. That night, after I tucked her into bed, I found myself sitting at Mark's desk, going through the paperwork again. Insurance documents. The will. His careful spreadsheets, color-coded, of course. He had left everything in order, just like he always did. Then I saw it. A letter. In an envelope, addressed to me in his handwriting. Anna, only if I'm gone. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Anna, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you how worried I was after that last checkup. I didn't want to scare you. So instead, I got to work, updating our accounts, our will, and setting up the trust. Everything goes to you and Emily. There's a separate education fund that can't be touched until she's 25, except for school expenses. You don't have to worry. I also want to warn you, your dad approached me twice in the past about investment ideas. I knew what he really wanted. That's why I made everything airtight. Please don't let them guilt you. This money is for you and our daughter, not for anyone else. You always said I was too trusting. But I trust you, Anna. To protect her. To protect yourself. You're stronger than you know. I love you. Always. Mark. I cried for an hour. Not just because I missed him, but because even in death, he was still shielding me. Still thinking ahead. Still trying to take care of us. And I knew right then. I wasn't going to let anyone undo what he had built for our daughter. 2 days later, I received a formal letter from my parents. Typed. Signed. Business letterhead. Unless we can reach a reasonable financial agreement regarding Mark's estate, we will be forced to reconsider our relationship with you and Emily. It was a threat, thinly veiled in family language. I sent it straight to Thomas, Mark's friend and the lawyer who helped with our estate planning. He replied within an hour. Don't worry. The will is bulletproof. They have no legal standing. But it's smart to document this. Just in case. He offered to send them a cease and desist letter if they pushed further. I told him to wait. I had something else in mind. Sunday afternoon. 1 week later. They invited me to their house. Said they wanted to talk again. Just the family. I almost didn't go. But Emily, God bless her, had overheard part of the conversation. Are we going to Grandma and Grandpa's? She asked. Because if we are, I want to bring something. What kind of something? I asked. A message. She disappeared into her room with construction paper, a ruler, and a lot of determination. When we walked into the living room, the setup looked like a boardroom. My father sat in his recliner like a judge. My mother poured coffee with forced graciousness. Sarah sat nearby, eyes glued to her phone. Extended family was there too, Uncle James, Aunt Rita, and others. Apparently, this was going to be a performance. We're here to resolve this, my father said. Let's not make things more complicated than they need to be. I didn't sit. Then say what you need to say. He handed me a paper. A financial breakdown. 50% to them. 15% to Sarah. Remaining 35% discretionary for Emily and me. As if they were doing me a favor by letting me keep any of it. I was about to speak when Emily stepped forward. She held up an envelope. I made something too. Everyone turned. My mother tried to smile. Sweetheart, this is a grown-up discussion. Then maybe the grown-ups should have acted like it, Emily said calmly. She opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. A handwritten invoice. At the top it read, Bill for love and support, to Grandma and Grandpa. Below were listed items. Hugging Mommy when she was crying, $0 not provided. Being there the day Daddy died, $0 not provided. Helping me sleep at night when I missed Daddy, $0 not provided. Real grandparents, priceless but not delivered. At the bottom, total, $0 earned. Silence. My father's face turned red. My mother stared at the paper like it might burn her. Sarah actually put her phone down. Emily handed the paper to my father, then walked back to me and took my hand. Daddy said people show you who they are. You just have to believe them. I turned to my parents. You want money? Sue me. You want a relationship? Earn it. But I will not sell my daughter's future to pay for your bad choices. We walked out hand in hand. I didn't look back. That evening, Emily sat beside me on the porch, coloring quietly. Did I do okay? She asked. You were braver than I've ever been, I said. She smiled. Daddy would have liked that drawing, huh? He would have framed it, I whispered. And in that moment, I realized. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were standing. The day after our confrontation with my parents, the silence was almost jarring. No phone calls. No emails. No texts demanding explanations or rationalizations. Just stillness. It was a new kind of grief. Not for Mark, but for the family I'd thought I had. For the love I assumed would always be there. But it was also freeing. I sat with Emily on our porch swing that afternoon. We sipped lemonade and watched the wind play with the trees. Do you think Grandma and Grandpa will be mad at me? She asked suddenly. Sweetheart, you told the truth, I said. And if someone gets mad at you for that, it says more about them than you. She nodded slowly, her legs swinging beneath the seat. Daddy always said the truth was brave, even when it's messy. Over the next few days, my phone started buzzing again. But not from my parents. Friends. Neighbors. People I hadn't spoken to in years. Somehow, word had gotten around. Not all the details, but enough. That my parents had come after the life insurance. That there'd been a family confrontation. That Emily had spoken up in a way no one expected. I was bracing for judgment. But what I received was grace. Amanda, Mark's assistant, stopped by with flowers and a grocery bag full of ready-made meals. "I heard," she said simply. "And I'm so sorry for what they did. But also, good for you." Ellen, our neighbor, offered to walk Emily to school on the mornings I couldn't get out of bed. Kevin's brother Marcus called from Japan and said, "That kid is a legend. I'm catching a flight next week. I'm coming to help for a while." It's what Mark would have wanted. And he did. When Marcus arrived, it was like the house exhaled. His presence brought Mark's laughter back into our kitchen. He cooked. He helped Emily with her homework. He took over the lawnmower like it was a full-time job. And he never once asked for anything. With Thomas's help, I reviewed all of Mark's financial plans, everything he had carefully, lovingly put in place. The trust for Emily, the insurance, the college fund he'd set up 2 years before he died, just in case. It was all there, intact, protected. "He planned it all for you," Thomas said, looking over the papers. "And no one, not your parents, not your sister, has any legal claim." It gave me peace. But more than that, it gave me permission to stop explaining myself, to stop apologizing for surviving, to protect what Mark built without shame. My parents, predictably, didn't let it go right away. They sent a bouquet of roses with a card that read, "Family means forgiveness. Let's start over." It felt more like bait than remorse. Then came the guilt trip messages from extended family, most of whom had been in the room during the confrontation. Silent observers. "Your parents did their best. Maybe you were too emotional. You only have one family, Anna." But I did have a family. Right there in the living room. In the form of an 8-year-old girl who had stood up when adults sat silent. In the quiet strength of Marcus, who dropped everything to help his niece. In Diana and Robert, Mark's parents, who called every week, who sent Emily letters and care packages and never once asked about the money. Family wasn't blood. It was presence. It took about a month for the noise to quiet down. During that time, I began carving out something new. Small things. Emily and I started a Saturday morning ritual, pancakes and a walk around the park. We donated some of Mark's suits to a shelter that helps men prepare for job interviews. I kept one, his favorite gray one, just to have in the closet. I took a leave of absence from work and used the time to write, to journal, to cry, to breathe. Sometimes healing isn't grand. It's silent, slow, unphotogenic. One night, while Emily was asleep and Marcus was reading in the living room, I sat on the back porch with a blanket and a cup of tea. And for the first time since the funeral, I let myself remember the good without it breaking me. The way Mark danced in the kitchen. The way he scribbled "I love you" on grocery lists. The way he sang lullabies even though he couldn't carry a tune. I smiled. And it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like resurrection. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Just our names. It was from my mother. "We've been thinking a lot about what happened. About what we said. And didn't say. About how we showed up. How we didn't show up. There's no excuse for our actions. We were wrong. Deeply, completely wrong. There were no demands. No justifications. Just acknowledgement. We don't expect forgiveness. We only hope for the chance to prove, over time, that we can be better." I didn't cry. But I didn't throw it away either. That Sunday, Emily and I visited the lake, where Mark used to take her fishing. She skipped stones while I sat on the bench. The same one where Mark had once tied her tiny shoelaces and called her champ. "Do you think Daddy's proud of me?" she asked suddenly. "More than you know," I said. She nodded. "I think he'd like who we're becoming." And just like that, I knew she was right. We weren't the same. We never would be. But we were becoming. Stronger. Clearer. Braver. A few weeks after the letter arrived, I found Emily sitting at the kitchen table, staring into space. "You okay, baby?" I asked, setting down a glass of juice. She nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed fixed on something invisible. "I was just thinking about Grandpa and Grandma," she said. "Do you think they meant it?" I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know. The truth was, something about my mother's letter had felt different. Not manipulative. Not polished like a press release. But raw. Hesitant. Human. They hadn't followed it up with flowers or passive-aggressive texts. They hadn't tried to show up unannounced. In fact, they'd done nothing. And in that nothingness, there was space. "Daddy said we should give people a chance to be better," Emily said softly. "But only if they show they really want to." She was 8. 8. And somehow wiser than most adults I knew. "Do you want to see them?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. "I think I want to talk. But not alone. And not at our house." I sat with that for a while. Then I wrote a note. Short. Simple. Cautious. "We received your letter. Thank you for acknowledging what happened. Emily is open to seeing you briefly, under certain conditions. It must be in a public place. I will be present the entire time. There will be no discussion of money, estate matters, or the past unless initiated by Emily. If you agree to these terms, we can meet next Saturday for ice cream at 2 p.m. Otherwise, we wish you peace, but distance." I printed it, sealed it, dropped it in the mail. Then I let go of the outcome. The reply came 3 days later. Not in writing, but in presence. That Saturday at 1:55 p.m., my parents walked into the little ice cream shop just off Main Street. My mom wore her church clothes, like she was trying too hard. My dad looked older than I remembered, more hunched, quieter. He held the door open for Emily like it was a ceremony. "Hi, Grandma," Emily said politely, standing behind me. "Hi, sweetheart," my mom whispered. "You look so grown up." "Thank you," Emily replied. They didn't reach for hugs. They didn't bring gifts. They just sat. And for the next 20 minutes, they talked. About books, school, soccer, favorite ice cream flavors. It was awkward. It was cautious. But it was peaceful. And that, I realized, was enough, for now. After we left, Emily didn't say much. We walked in silence until we reached the car. Then she turned to me and asked, "Do you think they're different now?" "I think they're trying," I said. "And that matters." She nodded. Trying is a good start. Over the next few months, we kept it limited. Once-a-month outings. Always with boundaries. Always on our terms. And to their credit, my parents respected them. No guilt trips. No financial talk. No veiled comments. Just attempts. Small efforts. My mother started sending postcards with Emily's favorite animals drawn in the corner. My father emailed her links to space documentaries. Sometimes it felt forced. Sometimes it felt sincere. But always it was slow. Deliberate. Earned. Around that time, Sarah, my sister, sent an email. She hadn't spoken to me since the funeral. Hadn't acknowledged the confrontation or her role in pushing my parents' financial demands. "I was wrong," she wrote. "Jealous, petty, and blind to what you were actually going through. You've always been the strong one. I made fun of you for it. But the truth is, I've always admired it. If you're open to it, I'd like to take you to coffee. No expectations. Just an apology. In person." I read it 3 times before responding. One coffee. One conversation. One chance. We met at a bookstore cafe on a rainy Tuesday. Sarah looked nervous. She wore no makeup and held her coffee like a shield. "I said terrible things," she admitted. "Yes," I replied. "You did." And I let Mom and Dad manipulate the situation because I was too comfortable being the favorite. "Yes," I said again. She swallowed hard. "But I want to be better. I don't want to be the person I was that day. Or the years before it." There was a long pause. "It starts with this," she said, reaching into her bag and handing me a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing. A copy of Emily's invoice. I found it at Dad's office. He kept it, taped to the inside of his desk drawer. I stared at it, stunned. It shook him, Sarah added. More than anything we said ever did. Forgiveness, I was learning, didn't come in grand moments. It came in uncomfortable conversations. In imperfect apologies. In someone choosing to stay in the room, even when it was easier to leave. 6 months after Mark's death, we held a memorial dinner in our backyard. A true celebration of his life. Burgers, his favorite beer, a playlist of his ridiculous 80s dance hits. Marcus made a speech. Emily read a poem. And my parents came. They sat quietly, offered to help with cleanup, and left early, without making it about them. That was all I needed. Not perfection. Just presence. That night, Emily crawled into bed beside me and said, "Do you think Daddy would have liked today?" "I think he would have loved it," I whispered. "Especially the dancing." She giggled. Then she went quiet. "I'm glad we didn't cut them off forever." "Me too," I said. "But I'm also glad we made them work for it." I smiled. "That's how love should be, baby. Earned. And protected. 1 year. That's how long it's been since Mark left us. 12 months for seasons, and 1,000 quiet moments where I've reached for him, only to remember, he's not there. But even in absence, he's everywhere. In the way Emily ties her shoelaces with a double knot. In the checklist I keep on our fridge, color-coded like he used to do. In the dad jokes she started telling with increasing confidence. Even though she rolls her eyes right after. He's in the fabric of our daily lives, woven so tightly that time hasn't unraveled him. On the anniversary of his passing, Emily and I went to the lake, his favorite spot. We brought flowers, 2 folding chairs, and silence. The wind was gentle. The sky a soft, forgiving gray. I sat with my feet in the cool water while Emily skipped stones. "Do you think he can see us?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I think he'd be proud of us." She picked up another stone and tossed it. It skipped 4 times before sinking. "I think he'd like that I stood up to Grandma and Grandpa." "I think he'd love it," I said, smiling. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded note. "I wrote him something," she said. She didn't read it aloud. She just walked to the edge of the water, whispered something I couldn't hear, and set the paper adrift. It floated a moment, then dipped beneath the surface and was gone. That night, I sat in bed reading through old emails, Mark's goofy memes, the to-do lists he used to send me titled, Operation Conquer Life, the digital breadcrumbs he left behind like he knew I'd need to follow them. I clicked on a folder I hadn't touched yet, just in case for Anna. Inside were scanned documents, instructions, usernames and passwords, but also a video. I hesitated before opening it. Then I hit play. Mark was sitting at his desk in the home office, wearing his Michigan hoodie, hair a little messy, coffee in hand. "Hey babe. If you're seeing this, well, it means the worst happened. And I'm sorry. God, I hate leaving you with this." He chuckled softly. "But I also know you. You're probably already sorting things, checking boxes, protecting Emily like the warrior you are." He looked down, then back up. "Listen, I know your parents. I know how they are. And I know how hard it is for you to draw lines with them. But this time you have to. Emily's future depends on it." He leaned closer. "You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose what's right. Even when it makes people angry. Even when it makes them walk away." He smiled gently. "Love isn't guilt. Love is choice. And boundaries are love too." My breath caught in my throat. He tapped his chest. "I'm still here, Anna. You've got this. You always did." The video ended. I sat there motionless. Grateful. Broken. Whole. All at once. The next day, I started something new. Mark had always wanted to give back. To teach families how to understand their finances the way he did for his clients. So, with Thomas's help, I launched the Weston Foundation, a nonprofit that provides free financial literacy classes to single mothers and young adults. It started small, a classroom at the local library, one workshop a month. Then people started calling, donating, volunteering. Mark's name carried weight and purpose. Emily helped design the logo, a maple leaf, for his favorite syrup. Below it, the words, empower, protect, plan. She insisted we hang a picture of him in every classroom, so people know who they're learning from, she said. Marcus ended up staying. He took a teaching position nearby and moved into an apartment just 10 minutes from us. He became a second father to Emily, not as a replacement, but as a continuation, a living piece of Mark. Every weekend, the two of them go on missions, bike rides, library raids, cooking experiments. They've made a memory box with pictures, mementos, and letters Emily writes to her dad. This way, when I grow up, I won't forget, she says. As for my parents, our relationship remains cautious, but consistent. They've kept to the boundaries. They've started showing up for birthdays, school recitals, quietly, respectfully. They bring cookies now instead of critiques. They listen more than they speak. And they never ask about money. It isn't perfect, but it's healing. And Sarah? We're rebuilding. She calls sometimes just to talk. She came to one of our foundation events last month and even helped set up chairs. She doesn't try to fix the past, but she acknowledges it. And that's more than I ever expected. But this story, ultimately, isn't about them. It's about Mark. And what love looks like after loss. It's about the strength to say no when people expect you to say yes. About the courage to protect what matters, especially when it would be easier to avoid the fight. It's about a little girl with a construction paper invoice. And a mother who learned that grief doesn't erase love. It refines it. So if you're watching this and you've lost someone, if you're carrying heartbreak while navigating betrayal, if you've had to defend your worth to the very people who should have protected you, please know, you are not alone. You have the right to grieve in peace. You have the right to protect your family. And you have the right to walk away from those who only show up with open hands, not open hearts. Mark may be gone, but his love, his plans, his values, they're still here. In the boundaries I've learned to build. In the girl I'm raising to stand tall. In the foundation bearing his name. Family, Mark once wrote to me in a birthday card, isn't just who we come from, it's who we become together. And every day, Emily and I are becoming. With love, with clarity, with strength. Thank you for listening to our story. If it touched something in you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, real love doesn't demand, it protects.